that our international partners may want to work on. The criteria for establishing projects usually follows but isn't always done this way. They get the small grant first. They get the small grant first. Sometimes we get a call from a sister teacher organization around the world to say the teachers in Zimbabwe have a special campaign. It's desperate. They haven't been paid in 6 months. We really need to put pressure on the government. We'd like you to fund a political campaign. And we begin a discussion about that. The committee or myself as a staff person would take to our executive a paper and a recommendation. None of these things are ever done simply by committee or by a staff person without our 7 elected leaders voting on it as well. You see that what's important in our solidarity is that we agree mutually what each party will get out of this relationship. Sometimes it's simply a 2-year relationship of funding, exchanging information, a tour, a visit, a letter, a document, a resource that's developed. Whatever is felt to be best in the interest of both parties, that's what we try and do. We make it very clear when we're working with our partners that this isn't the experts from the north coming to the global south to work on a variety of issues and to give expert opinion. It's about a partnership. And so some of the resources that we've designed, and there have been 6 to date, have dealt with issues like HIV/AIDS, the world water crisis, labor rights for maquila workers, food sovereignty and security, and we have partnered with teacher organizations in a variety of countries to design those resources. Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, South Africa. Peru is the gender project as well, the non-sexist pedagogical project with PCTF. Here's a special one in Colombia that we've been active in for about 15 years. The teachers in Colombia and human rights activists in Colombia, as many of you in this room have known, have been under threat for decades. We have engaged with a number of organizations in Colombia to, as we like to say, help save lives, to witness what political prisoners have been through. We've gone on human rights tours with teacher unions, with sister organizations to visit prisoners in jail. We've testified on their behalf. We've refused to answer questions from CSIS or any Colombian authorities about those Colombians that may have got refugee status in Canada. You'll see that the work that we've done on Colombia is pretty broad. We have helped sponsor a Colombian trade unionist and her family. We have helped to design curriculum resources, and the current project that we're involved in is with FECODE, the Colombian National Teachers Federation, which is the largest, I believe it's the largest union in Colombia right now. I think they're larger than the public sector as well. They have struggled with, how do you make schools zones of peace? Previously, up to last year, they needed to say to the government and the paramilitaries, stay out of our schools. They were constantly using school spaces as barracks, as launching sites, in their struggle against the guerrilla movement. The Teachers Federation have created a very innovative project where they will move to every province in the country through something called pedagogical circles. And those teachers themselves will begin to interview educators, students, community members, about not only the need to make our schools safer, but how do you now bring combatants who used to be on different sides of an armed struggle into the same schools and communities once again. As you know, the peace accords in Colombia are now completed. Soon the FARC will be contesting in elections next year in Colombia. That doesn't mean that because of the absence of armed struggle, that all forms of civil society have been solved or every problem has been addressed. And education and schooling is one of the key ones that we feel is important for us to stay involved. And we realize that Canada is in a very different place. We're in a much safer zone, but we have taken in students from all over the world, including students in our classrooms and universities from different parts of factions, arguments, armed conflicts, and wars. And those students seem to get along in Canadian schools. What is it that's happening? What is it that's being done in Canadian schools that's worked? What's been our challenges? That's the kind of thing that the Colombian educators are asking for our help. So we hope to, over the next 3 to 5 years, work with them on these pedagogical circles to help make schools zones of peace. Okay, they want to create 50, they've done that, they're in 5 regions right now. Okay, I've talked about that. Excellent, sure. We've done joint funding. We used to be part of the Canadian Labour Congress when it received CEDA funding. It was called the Labour International Development Program, LIDP. And we received funds from CEDA prior to the Tory-Harper government, which cut all of that funding, for development projects, for union capacity building, for the kinds of programs that often unions have had to fund on their own. It was a very nice thing when you could put your members' money and match it with CEDA money as well to help strengthen the programs. But that all disappeared in 2007 to 2012 was probably the last bit of funding that we got. And so since 2012, we have been funding this kind of project in Colombia with the BCTF and with the CSQ as well in Quebec. So CEDA is the International Development Agency. That's the equivalent of USAID, the Norwegian aid. I don't know what other countries are represented here. I don't know if Mexico has something similar. Larry Lewis would tell us. Okay, so it was matching dollars always, right? Okay, let's move on. Another very special project for us that's ongoing.
More OSSTF members get a sense of this kind of work that's being done. So it's not just constrained to staff or activists like myself. The Trinational Coalition, it began in the context of NAFTA being negotiated in '93 and concerns about the potential for NAFTA to be a vehicle for privatizing education across the continent, and it stayed basically a way of trying to coordinate solidarity amongst the teachers' union, but also share information because, and I'll speak as a sidebar here for my own personal areas of research, that there's more and more commonalities in the trajectories of education policy across the continent. And even though we don't share the same employers, our employers are still very much defined by our respective governments. There's a lot of exchange of ideas that happen between these governments. There's a lot of kinds of shared international norms around teachers' evaluation, student evaluation, forms of school choice and so forth, this is called, that make their way around the continent. And so this is also why it's not just the right thing to do for teachers in Ontario to be aware of what's going on elsewhere in Latin America, but also teachers in Ontario can benefit from understanding the experience of teachers in Mexico who have dealt with far more egregious forms of neoliberal education reform than we have faced yet here in Canada. Okay, that's it. So I guess I'm going to. I guess I'll hand it over now to Mary Luce. So I'm just going to let you set your speaking. I just say a few. Yeah, so you can turn that up. I guess this, while Mary Luce sets up, a few kind of enduring issues we face as well is in terms of like the work of the Trinational Coalition has depended a lot on some very specific individuals. One of whom is Mary Luce, who I'm very happy came here from Mexico City. Also, people like Larry Kuhn, who is research director of the BC Teachers Federation, the former president of the BCTF. People like Dominic Bellisimo, who basically form personal relationships and relationships of trust over the years across these 3 countries, and more recently people from the Chicago Teachers Union, people like Jackson Potter, who wasn't able to be here today. And those kinds of personal relationships have, in large extent, the Trinational has been built around them. The big issue we face is how to go beyond that, so that the Trinational Coalition and its solidarity work is not dependent on these personal relationships, so that when people eventually retire and move on, these connections are not lost. Like in the case of OSSTF, it's part of our structure that we're affiliated to the Ontario Federation of Labour and the Canadian Labour Congress. It's more of an informal thing that we work within the Trinational Coalition. So part of Dominic's work, which I think is really important, is trying to more make it, the Trinational work more a regular part of what OSSTF does, to make it more sustainable in that fashion. So it doesn't depend on him being there or on me advocating for it, but it becomes more institutionalized. So that becomes something that becomes that our local leaders, you know, are aware of and are interested in by themselves organically. So I guess at that point I'm gonna conclude my remarks, and while Mary Lou is setting up, I'm gonna say a few brief words to introduce her. Mary Lou is professor of economics at the UNAM, and one thing, I myself, I was an exchange student part of my undergrad at the UNAM in 506, and I just want to say one thing about the economics department at the UNAM. It's very unlike what you would think about the economics departments about anywhere else. So it's like the exact opposite of like the economics departments in Canada, United States. Like when I went there, the first thing I saw and when you walked into the building was this banner that said, "Just say no to neoliberalism." And the main lecture hall was a Ho Chi Minh lecture hall. So and then across the way in the political science building, there's the Che Guevara lecture hall, right? And then there's the Ricardo Flores Magón lecture hall, named after the famous Mexican anarcho-syndicalist. So it's just vastly different. And I know Meredith could probably talk about how there's probably lots of neoliberals in her department as well, and it's contested space. But there's also more of like a radical space, more of a socialist or a Marxist space within her economics department. So Mario Luz is kind of the key liaison in Mexico on behalf of Trinational with La Cente, in terms of with the leaders and activists of La Cente, which are, as I said, organized primarily in the primary and secondary schools in Mexico, and also too with the various universities as well. At the UNAM, at the Metropolitan University of UAM, at the University of the City of Mexico, and other organizations like that. So, Mary.
Estamos hablando de dos sindicatos, secundarios, Student Teacher Federation y British Columbia Teacher Federation, bueno, dos federaciones en realidad, que tienen prácticas, como se dijo aquí, de sindicalismo de justicia social, que es un sindicalismo que busca, no sé si lo han logrado totalmente, yo creo que sí, pero rebasar el gremialismo. Pensar en que no es solo aumento salarial mejor, negociar las condiciones de trabajo, sino pensar en el papel de los sindicatos en la transformación de un derecho social, en la garantía de este, que es la educación, pero en crear sociedades democráticas y transformarlo. En México hablamos de emancipación, pero eso es otra cosa, ¿no? No solamente es una sociedad democrática. Bueno, esto fue muy importante. Entonces nacemos porque vemos amenazado el derecho a la educación. ¿Qué es la coalición? La coalición es un espacio de confluencia, como les decía, no es un frente sindical, hay representaciones sindicales, pero también habemos académicos, estudiantes, es un espacio de defensa del derecho a la educación que promueve la participación de muchos más, aparte de los que estamos involucrados en la coalición. Es una instancia de trabajo, de análisis. Es muy importante esto, porque no es solamente ponernos de acuerdo en cuándo nos vamos a movilizar, sino ponernos de acuerdo en cuáles son los temas centrales que hay que estudiar y a los que hay que presentar alternativas, en todos los ámbitos. Esto es muy importante. Lo otro, bueno, ¿quiénes participan? Al principio decíamos, más que coalición trinacional, somos una coalición binacional. ¿Por qué? Pues porque... se corrió. Oh, la nueva tecnología. Decíamos que éramos binacionales porque participaban principalmente sindicatos de Canadá y de México, no de Estados Unidos. Era mínimo, sí había participación, pero eran activistas y los contábamos con los dedos de la mano. 5 activistas de todo Estados Unidos. ¿Por qué? Porque la federación hay dos federaciones nacionales en Estados Unidos de maestros, la National Education Association y la American Federation Teachers. Ambas no estaban en contra del Tratado de Libre Comercio, pensaban que iba a beneficiar, o por lo menos las dirigencias. Entonces, esto fue cambiando. Y afortunadamente hoy tenemos a un sindicato que está jugando un papel muy importante, que lo mencionó el compañero en su presentación, que es el sindicato de Chicago, de los maestros de Chicago, que ellos están teniendo un papel fundamental y que hay que seguirlo, porque tienen trabajo de base, porque están vinculados a las comunidades, porque además de eso tienen una idea estratégica, no solamente para Chicago. Creo que es muy importante. Además está la participación, obviamente, de sindicatos de California. Digo obviamente porque hay un vínculo muy estrecho binacional de México-California, así lo plantearía yo, no solo en los migrantes, sino en el intercambio realmente, ¿no? Es un tema completo. Tenemos activistas estudiantiles, actualmente de los 3 países, eso es muy importante también en la coalición, porque le da un cambio, hay refresca, permite que gente no solo joven, sino con ideas distintas, de generaciones diferentes, puedan tener formas distintas también de qué tenemos que hacer. Bueno, de México aquí hay muchas siglas, pero principalmente son sindicatos educativos de educación superior y las secciones democráticas del magisterio de educación básica. ¿Qué importancia tiene? Ustedes van a decir, ¿importancia y es una conferencia? No, es un acto de solidaridad con el magisterio mexicano. Esto no es solo una conferencia. Son compañeros de Canadá, de Estados Unidos, que solidariamente van a México a manifestarse, no solo en este evento, que era un evento muy grande, 2,000 maestros más o menos de educación básica, sino además